Hello and welcome to our webinar today about how to stabilize your business by growing recurring revenue. We are really excited to have Nathan Ingram with us to go over this topic. He's really knowledgeable about it. He is a coach. He helps agencies, freelancers, like many of you out there, break through those obstacles and barriers, recurring revenue being a big one. He's also the host at iThemes Training, so you can catch him over there as well. I am Emily. I am the marketing coordinator at GoWP. If you're not familiar with GoWP, we are a white label WordPress maintenance and support team. So we partner with agencies to help establish recurring revenue, which we'll get into that in the webinar today, I'm sure. And we take all those daily maintenance tasks off your plate. So the plugin updates, the backups, security, all of that kind of stuff we take care of for you. And we also are a white label service. So of course, the support requests that are coming in from your clients all the time, those would come directly into your branded white label inbox. And our 24/7 support team would take care of it from there, leaving you all the time in the world to focus on the growth of your agency. So if you have any questions about GoWP or how partnering with GoWP could help yourself, your agency, any of that, feel free to throw them up in the chat and we'll take care of those at the end of the webinar, or feel free to email me. It's emily@gowp.com and I'll be happy to talk with you about it. So without further ado, let's hop into this webinar with Nathan, and make sure you stay tuned because he's got some special deals at the end for everybody who's watching. I believe he already has this going on in progress and he's going over what we can expect in today's webinar. So enjoy.
Thanks. That's where we're going to head for the next 45, 50 minutes or so. We'll have plenty of time for questions both throughout and at the end. I'll stay here as long as you guys want and you have questions to ask. I'm happy to do that. Let's use the chat feature there here in Zoom. If you don't see the chat bubble, click more. There's a little 3-dot icon there. Click that and hit chat and you'll get the chat window in front of you. And that'll let folks on the webinar interact with each other as well as ask me questions. Now, it's always helpful if you drop in a question, just preface that question with the word question in all uppercase. That way I kind of glance over and look at the chat box. I make sure I see that. You can get the slides and resources for today's webinar. Everything you see on the screen, go to nathaningram.com/GoWP and you can put your email address in there. It'll send it to you right away. That will get you the slides as well as a very important tool that will help you generate services for recurring revenue. So we'll look at that as we go. So that's a quick overview. Let's dive into the content. So first of all, why is it that recurring income is critical? And let me just tell you this. When it comes to what really motivates me, I am passionate about empowering freelancers and business owners to succeed. I'm a strong believer in owning your own business so that you can fuel your life that you want to lead. Your time, your priorities, whatever you think is the most important. I love to see people build a business that supports that, whether that's working part-time, full-time, building a single-person solopreneur web development practice, or whether you want to build a large agency or anything in between. Your business ought to fuel the life you want to lead. Now, what I've discovered over the years, I've been coaching WordPress business owners for a little over 6 years now, and in hundreds of conversations online and in person across the United States and around the world, what I've learned is that many WordPress freelancers and business owners are one more bad client away from calling it quits, or one more bad month away from throwing in the towel. And it's a shame because virtually every one of these business frustrations is solvable, and many of them can be traced back to a lack of recurring income. And by the way, if that's you today and you're teetering on the edge of, am I going to keep doing this or not? That's why I'm here for you. And seriously, let's talk. You can hit me on Twitter at Nathan Ingram. Add me and I'll add you back and we can direct message, or you can reach out to me on my website at nathaningram.com. Happy to talk with you because I want to empower you to succeed in your business and do what you're doing better. Now, when we talk about recurring income, this is really the overarching statement. This is the big idea of today's talk, and that is that recurring income is the foundation of a successful freelance business. I'm of the opinion that it is virtually impossible to survive without it. And I chose those words carefully. I realized that's a pretty absolute statement. But in my opinion, both based on my own experience personally and in having coached lots of people over the years in growing recurring revenue, it is virtually impossible to survive long-term in a web development business without some sort of recurring income. You have to have it. Because without recurring income, you are completely dependent on consistent sales for survival. And this may be you. I'll tell you, it is true of a lot of people who are doing a WordPress business or any kind of web or tech business. Most of us are not extroverts. We got into this because we like the tech. And getting out there and selling is one of the most intimidating, gut-wrenching, difficult things you'll ever do. And if you don't have some sort of recurring revenue, you got to be out there selling all the time. So I put this in a place where we're just not great at it usually. You're also at the client's mercy to supply the assets for the website so you can finish the job and get paid. Let me hear from you guys in the chat. How many of you right now today are waiting on a client to supply the content for a website so that you can get paid and get the thing built? If that's you, let me hear from you in the chat. Yeah, that's me. Say that. Because that's what I found. People are hung up on getting content from the client. And so we have this project out there and, we're waiting to get paid. We can't do the project because the client's stalling. We end up living project to project because there's no recurring revenue coming in. See, without recurring income, you're really freelancing without a safety net, or you're operating a business without any safety net, because even if you knocked it out of the park this year and you had a great year, even if you make 6 figures this year, every January you start at 0 again, unless you have some sort of recurring income coming into your business. And that's really, it's a hard way to live. It's a hard way to run a business. Something else that I'll mention is without recurring income, you get into what I call the disappearing web developer syndrome. Now, how many of you have taken on what I call a rescue project? And that's one where you get this call from this client, seems like a nice person, and they were working with some web developer on their project, and poof, the web developer is just gone. They've disappeared. They don't have any access to their site. They don't know how to get their domain name. They're trying to make changes to their website, and the person that built it for them has disappeared. Now, the disappearing web developer phenomenon is something I see quite a bit. We're actually dealing with 2 projects right now in my agency that were fairly decent-sized projects that were rescue projects from disappearing web developers. And, I'm of the opinion that one of the main reasons this disappearing web developer phenomenon even happens is because of the issue of recurring revenue. And let me draw a line between those. A lot of people get into the web business because, like I said earlier, they like the tech, but they get 6 months, a year, 18 months in, and they realize, oh my gosh, I'm running a business, and there's a whole business side to this. There's a sales side to this. There's a revenue side to this. And they realize, I just want to do the tech. I'm not great at this business thing. So they end up, because they have month after month of no sales and they're really scraping to pay bills, they say, forget this. I'm going back to work for somebody else. And the problem is the poor client gets left holding the bag. So without recurring revenue, it's very possible that you might even become that next disappearing web developer who, ends up disappearing on their clients. So it's critical that you build in recurring income. So let's talk about establishing a mindset of recurring income, getting that into our heads, not only why it's important, but how this thing works. So early on, I was fortunate to have a mentor that asked me a very important question. He said, Nathan, is every dollar worth the same? And this was almost 25 years ago, this conversation happened. Is every dollar worth the same? And of course, you think, well, a dollar is a dollar, right? And, that's the answer that he wanted me to give. But here's the reason he asked the question. Because the more predictable a dollar is, the more valuable it becomes. He told me early on that, and at that time I was charging like $1,000 to build a website, or $500 to build a website. And he said, you don't want the $500. You want the $50 a month, the $75 a month, the $100 a month to maintain and manage that website over the long term, because they're not going to, if they're satisfied with your work, they're not going to go anywhere else. So the lifetime value of that customer is not in the initial website sale, it's in the recurring revenue after the sale for years to come. That's where the value is in the web development business. Now, he taught me that early on, but you can see this true in lots of different industries. So for example, here are two logos from different video companies. I don't know how old you are, but for me, I grew up going to Blockbuster Video. It was a thing. You know, every Friday night we'd pile in the car and my parents would drive us over to Blockbuster Video, and you walk in and there's shelves full of, at that time, VHS tapes, and you'd pick out a couple, you know, $2, $3 a night. And it was that, you know, every Friday night we went to Blockbuster. Now, nothing wrong with that, but then Netflix comes along. And Netflix, you know, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go to the Netflix store and buy movies individually or TV shows individually. These are two very different models. The Blockbuster model was based on repeat sales. You had to get out there and go wherever, you know, and they were just counting on you coming back and back and back to build their revenue. Netflix, it doesn't matter if you turn on Netflix once, they're going to hit your account for 10, 15, 18, whatever it is, dollars now every month, no matter what. So it's ongoing. It's recurring revenue. Now, when you look at this, where is Blockbuster? They are dead. Matter of fact, there's one Blockbuster video store in the entire world, and it's not even a corporate store. The corporation is really gone. They exist in small ways here and there, but they've just licensed the name. That's it. Blockbuster's gone. Netflix growing, bigger and bigger every month. Now, many WordPress businesses depend on repeat sales or upsells instead of recurring revenue. And I would submit to you that you're working on a dead model if that's what you're doing. It's got to be based on recurring revenue. Here's another example. How do car dealerships survive? I mean, how often do you buy a car? Some people buy them a lot. Most of us are, you know, we can't afford a new car all the time. And so if a car dealership was simply based on we're selling you a new car and we're basing our business on repeat customers and upsells, they're not going to go very far. So how is it that car dealers survive? And the answer is it's the service department. They want you coming in there every couple months for an oil change, for here and there, tires, all the stuff that they want. You know, that's how a lot of their income comes out of that. By the way, the most profitable division of General Motors is GMAC, General Motors Auto Credit. It's the credit, the recurring revenue piece that really fuels GM. This is not just a web development thing. This is across the board. We do a lot of business with car washes. And if you have a car wash near you, you probably have noticed that most car washes are going to a monthly model. They don't want you over here buying the one-off car washes. You know, their big car washes, $20. Well, instead, for $29.99, you can wash every day if you want to and get that same deal. So, you know, they've realized that the value of the customer is more if they can get you locked into a monthly situation. And really, it's more beneficial to the client as well. So it works for everybody. We got to get that mindset in it. To make money in the web development business, it's not about selling websites. Website is great, but that's an introduction to an ongoing relationship where you're selling a monthly service to the client. When you do that, you're going to get more consistent income. It's going to stabilize your finances. If you're like most people who have a freelance web business or an agency, your income goes up and down. There are really good months and really bad months and some in between, but it is rocky. You know, your income is like these mountains in the background here. It's up and down, and some months are great, some months are terrible. Recurring income helps to stabilize those finances. If you bring in services that keep you in front of the client every month, it's also going to make that relationship both for you and the client more profitable, more valuable, because you've positioned yourself as a partner to your clients and not a vendor. You're not somebody they just hire one time to build a website. You are partnering with them ongoing for their success on the web. That lets you sell additional things to them as you go. It's a great place to position yourself for more referrals for business. It just makes the relationship much better. So that makes sense. Again, feel free to ask questions there in the webinar chat. If you have questions, just drop them in there. I'm happy to answer them. Let's take a minute and talk about how then do we create services for recurring income? What do we need to do to build these services that are going to bring in recurring revenue? Well, if you sell WordPress websites, the natural starting place is a WordPress care plan. A WordPress care plan is, your ongoing care of the website after it launches. You've spent the time investing in the client to build this relationship with the client, so maximize the value. Now, here's what I would say. These are the 4 parts of an effective WordPress care plan, the 4 elements that make up a WordPress care plan: hosting, backups, updates, and security. Hosting, backups, updates, security. Those are 4 elements that make up an effective WordPress care plan. Now, as soon as I mention hosting in this conversation, I've given this talk in a lot of places, automatically I see this wall come up, because there's a certain portion of you who are watching this webinar who are thinking, I do not want to offer hosting services. I do not want to get into this. I don't want to have to deal with that. Let me explain what I mean by that and why you ought to offer hosting services. Number 1, from your end, you control the environment. I don't know about you, but before I started offering hosting services and I let the client bring their own hosting, it would be, I'd get into this hosting and it's some weird proprietary control panel, and it takes me forever to figure out what in the world, how do I even set up a database in this? Where's the file manager? How do I get to anything? And so you lose so much time just trying to figure out the environment that you now have to build in. Also, what does that environment support behind the scenes? Is it going to have all the PHP extensions I need? Or is the PHP going to be set up correctly? Is the memory right? You get into a project and it's just full of surprises. So when you control the environment, you become more productive. There's no surprises along the way. Also, you're leaving money on the table. If you build a website, it needs to be hosted somewhere. So if you've spent the time to build the client relationship, you might as well make some money from the hosting as well. And I know that a lot of hosts offer, referral, where they give you a one-time deal. And again, a one-time deal, nothing wrong with that. But why not get a monthly residual and not just a one-time piece? You're handing off the most valuable piece of this puzzle to the web host to bill them on a monthly basis instead of collecting that for yourself. And also, this is really the main reason, it's better for your client. When you offer hosting services, instead of making them go get hosting and bring it to you, there's one contact. I position myself as one neck to strangle for everything that has to do with your website. And so there's no blame game. If there's a problem on the website, I might say, well, it's related to your host. And they contact the host, and the host says, no, that's related to your web developer. And it gets the client in this cycle where it's very frustrating for the client, especially the non-technical client, when they're back and forth. And by the way, you might as well offer hosting, because whether the problem is hosting related or not, the client's going to call you anyway, so you might as well make money from it, right? So that's my take on that. I think you ought to offer hosting services. And this is not what I mean. I do not mean setting up a server rack in your basement or in your living room and having wires everywhere. That's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about having hosting services, is partnering with a trusted web host that provides phenomenal support. Now, I got some recommendations on that if anybody wants to know, but you want to have a host that not only provides great uptime and speed, but that if there's a problem and it's a technical server problem, I want a person that I can call or chat or send a ticket 24/7 and get an answer. Because I don't want to be the server guy. I don't want to have to know all that stuff. I want to trust a partner that can provide that support for me. So that's what I'm talking about. That you set up an account with the host, and then you bill your clients directly. There's a couple of different ways I would suggest doing this. The first would be setting up a VPS or dedicated server. That's the route that I currently go for most sites. I have one server where all of my sites are located. And if you are reasonably technical and you're comfortable with managing that side of things yourself, you pay one small cost and you get to charge lots of money to the client. And there's a lot of margin in a VPS or dedicated server. For example, we've got about 120 WordPress websites on a dedicated server with Liquid Web. And, we charge, the typical cost is about $100 a month for a care plan. Now, by the way, a lot of those are nonprofit sites that we do at very, very low cost by choice. But, the average client is going to pay $100 to $300 a month of a WordPress care plan, depending on the level of service they need. So you can quickly see how $150 to $200 server, gosh, you can make that back quickly and way more, a lot higher margin in that scenario. Now, another option is a managed WordPress. These offerings have been around now for a few years. They're quite mature. There are a number of good managed WordPress companies. Managed WordPress is a great way if you are not a technical person, or if you just want somebody else to handle website management, or if you are hosting high importance websites, sites with a lot of traffic, that you just want a better solution for hosting. A managed WordPress situation might be great. And a lot of hosts, like Liquid Web, for example, will let you bundle in X number of managed WordPress sites for a flat fee, and then you can charge the client that and more to host their website. So there's a couple of different options there. Managed WordPress is higher cost, lower margin, but you do get a higher quality of hosting. So you have to figure out kind of what works best for you. But having a good hosting package, having it there, it's a system that you're going to be familiar with, a host that you trust, you can now offer that to the client with competence and confidence and know that they're going to be served well. Now, the second element of a good WordPress care plan is a great backup solution. You got to have great WordPress backups. Now, here's 3 things that I would say make a great backup solution. First of all, backup should happen automatically. If I've got to log into WordPress and start the backup, that is not a reliable solution, because I'm busy and I'm going to forget, and you probably will too. So we need this to happen automatically on a schedule. Backup should also be full site, not just the database. You want the whole thing, all the files, everything, and easy to restore with a great restore wizard. And last of all, backups ought to be stored offsite in cloud storage. Now, I use a multi-tiered backup strategy where I have server-based backups on a dedicated server. Managed WordPress also has its own backup, but I also want backups that are shipped offsite to some cloud storage. I use S3 so that just in case something happens at the host, I've got a backup of the site. I went through this because years ago, I was with another host, and my dedicated server was down almost 36 hours because of their data center. And we were stuck because we didn't have offsite backups. Never again will I allow that to happen. I want a backup happening that is, in addition to the on-site server backup, I want to have copies of those sites off-site in cloud storage that are under my control, not the host. A third option is WordPress update services. Now, by updates, I mean going in there and hitting the WordPress core theme and plugin updates. Now, a lot of folks, and just an experience talking about this with lots of folks, I know that some of you may very well be doing this for free, because I did that for years as well, because I was foolish. I made this mistake. Don't make this mistake. This is a valuable service. It's a lot more than just logging into WordPress and pressing update. That usually works, but if you've been in WordPress long enough, you know that sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes things break. So don't do this for free. So what I offer to the client is regular proactive updates. Normally this happens once a week, but when threat levels are enhanced, you can watch WordPress security news and see, oh, there's an exploit, there's this, there's that. We do it more often in our business, 2 or 3 times a week sometimes, during those times of the year, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, when the threat level is raised. Now, something else that I offer in this update service is what I would call compatibility assurance. If a plugin on your site quits working or breaks, we're going to fix it, replace it with something else or whatever. That's just an assurance for the client that all they're paying is the WordPress care plan rate. They're not going to get nickel and dime for additional services. So those are what we offer in a WordPress update service, and it works quite well. Now, we're managing 120 plus websites right now, and I'm not logging into each site individually. We use a centralized management dashboard. Hopefully you're doing that as well. There are a number of excellent options out there for that solution. Now, last of all, we need to be offering WordPress security services. So that's the fourth element of a good WordPress care plan. Now, first of all, it starts at the server level. When you look at WordPress security, everything starts at the server. You need a good secure server and a good secure network. And once you have that, you want to make sure you're offering some sort of Let's Encrypt or other free SSL option. That's free on most managed WordPress and VPS dedicated. Either the Komodo-based cPanel certificate or Let's Encrypt should be free. If your host doesn't give you free SSL, probably time to find a new host. But we offer that free as part of our plan. And then WordPress security. We call it a 42-point WordPress lockdown because we use iThemes security for WordPress security, and there's 42 options that we can use to lock down WordPress. And we position that to the client as a 42-point WordPress lockdown. Works pretty well. So we manage security ongoing as well. We watch the updates and monitor iTheme security settings to make sure it stays secure. But what you're selling here in a WordPress care plan is peace of mind. You're offering the hosting, the backups, the updates, the security, so your clients don't have to worry about their websites. They simply trust you to do it. They've trusted you to build their website. It's a pretty easy next step to get them to trust you to manage their website for a reasonable monthly rate ongoing to keep the site healthy and secure. Now, that's the place to start. Everybody doing WordPress for clients ought to be offering some sort of a care plan. Now, by the way, you're watching this webinar through GoWP, and if you don't want to answer client tech support, a great thing to do is bring in GoWP to manage all those client support tickets, and they can watch all these things for you. And Emily can tell you about that, and it's a wonderful way to have your hosting, have GoWP on top of that, and then charge some profit on top of that for your clients, and have a really nice little business set up and let GoWP do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. So yeah, talk to them, and if you're not already a customer, reach out to them because they might be able to help you solve a real problem there. Now, WordPress care plans are the cornerstone, but let's talk about some other services, and I'm going to give you a nice tool to figure this out. When you're looking at creating other services that can bring in recurring revenue to your business, there are 3 basic questions you need to ask. First of all, what do my customers need? The kinds of customers that you serve, what do they need to do better? Then, what are the services that I can create that meet those needs that I've identified that my customers have? And last of all, what are the resources that I need to assemble to perform the service that meets the need, right? So 3 basic questions. What are the needs? What services? What resources? Now, I'm going to give you a tool here to create services for your clients. And you can download these worksheets, nathaningram.com/GoWP. If you go there, this is where you'll land. Just put in your name and email address. It'll email you immediately this information. And here is the worksheets. Now, there's 6 pages in this worksheet packet. It's a PDF. It's downloadable. There's a blank that you can print out and fill in. There's an instruction sheet and then an example for each. Now, what I want to spend a minute doing here is just showing you how these worksheets work. So I've used these worksheets with people across the country and around the world to generate reliably services that bring in recurring revenue for their business. So the first worksheet is the services generator. Now, this is just basically a brainstorming canvas to get some thoughts going. The first page is the printable, and the second page is the instructions. So the first column is customer segment. Who is the customer we're talking about here? What kind of business are they in? What's the work they're trying to accomplish? What would the customer gain if this work was done effectively? What pains do they have while trying to accomplish the work? And then how can you provide a solution? So let's do an example here. The first is going to be our WordPress care plan. Let me zoom in on this so you can see it. So first of all, we're going to look at the small business segment. And the work that they might need to do is, well, they need to keep WordPress and the plugins up to date. We know that needs to happen, right? That's important for security and so forth. So here's a small business owner. They need to keep WordPress and plugins up to date. And if they do this, the site stays secure and performs optimally. I mean, what business owner doesn't want that, right? But in doing this, the pains they experience are fear of making updates to WordPress. A lot of folks are afraid if I click update, what's going to happen? Or they forget to check if updates are even needed. You know, you log into a site, it's been 6 months and there's 32 updates that need to be done to the site. That's bad. So those are the pains they experience. And your solution could be, hey, we're going to offer managed WordPress update services for client websites. All right. And that's kind of what we've talked about already. Here's another option though. Maybe you serve nonprofit organizations. We do a lot with nonprofits by choice. And what's the work they need done? Well, a nonprofit needs to regularly communicate with current and potential donors about their work. Now, if they did that, the gains they'd experience are they get excited. Their donor base gets excited. They might see increase in donation levels of existing donors and activating new donors and even new volunteers. But the pain in accomplishing this with nonprofits is, look, there's just a lack of staff. There's a lack of time. The staff they have may not have the skill or the training necessary to get messaging out there correctly. They may have trouble keeping messages and brand consistent. I mean, in most small to small medium nonprofits, if you walk into their office, they've got 10 flyers that all look totally different. They've got 3 different versions of their logo. Their Facebook page is managed by 4 different people, and there's no consistency about voice. They probably don't have an email newsletter, and if they do, it's done periodically and not very well. And these are things that most nonprofits deal with. So what can you do? Well, you could offer an email marketing service to plan a message calendar and create emails that are coordinated with web content. So here's a couple of good examples of gains, pains, and solutions to different customer segments. So my advice to you would be take this packet, print out a couple of blanks of this first one, and then just go spend some time and think about the different customer segments that you serve. And by the way, each segment could have multiple work they're trying to accomplish. Another item for work could be a small business. They need to get found on Google. So maybe we need to work on an SEO service or that sort of thing. Each of your customer segments can have multiple works, but just take some time to flesh out the gains, pains, and solutions for each job that each kind of customer needs to have. Now we move to our second worksheet. This is the Advanced Services Planner, and this is what's really going to help you flesh out a service behind each of these ideas. So for each row in the generator, each row gets 1 planner. So here's your blank to print out. Here's our example. So what are we going to call the service? Who's the segment? Give us a 1-sentence description. Then we're going to start here in the middle with the value propositions. What value does the service bring? Then we're going to go to activities. What needs to happen to pull this service off? What are the resources that we're going to need to pull the service off? What is it going to cost me to execute this service on my end? And then what am I going to charge for it over here? So this is going to help you flesh out that service. Now here's our example. We're going to take that second example in the services generator, that nonprofit service that we're going to call donor reach. All right, so here's our example of how this works. So this is targeted at small to medium nonprofits, and it is an email marketing service for nonprofit organizations that helps them maintain compelling communications with their donor base. All right, so we can do this. We're going to help them put together an email newsletter coordinated with web content. So what are the value propositions that this service brings? Well, nonprofits are understaffed and rarely have the manpower or expertise to maintain consistent strategic communications. That's one of the pains we talked about. Another value proposition is that's going to be provided by a local professional they can meet with face-to-face. That goes a long way with a lot of small organizations. We're going to create and execute a planned message calendar. We're going to help you figure out what the message is going to be and then pull it off. We're going to provide professional copy words that are designed to engage potential donors. We're going to coordinate that with website content that's shareable to social media to supplement email and provide additional calls to action. Then we're going to provide regular reporting to show the effectiveness of the service. So those are the value propositions this service brings to the table. Now let's go over here to the activities. What do I need to do to pull this off? Well, we got to have a planned strategy meeting with me and the copywriter to assemble the message calendar. We got to create the email copy. We got to create supplementary web content. We need to create a tracking report. So those are the things I need to do to pull this off. What are the resources needed? Well, we're going to need some sort of email marketing platform. We're going to need an account manager to meet with the client. Currently, that's me. We're going to need a copywriter. That might be me, or you might bring somebody in. You need a website manager. That's going to be me. We need some sort of platform or template to do reporting for, how many views and clicks and so forth we're getting. So those are the resources. Again, what we're doing here is we're unpacking this thing so it's not just this big nebulous service, and we're breaking it down into pieces that we need to pull this off. So once we have that together, we're going to go over to the right-hand side. What are the costs involved? Well, we're going to need an email platform. And I think what we're going to do is get the client to sign up for their own account because Constant Contact has nonprofit pricing. We're going to hire a copywriter, maybe $35 an email, $50 an email, that sort of thing. And we're going to have eventually a cost for an account manager because I want to get out of that business. Maybe the copywriter could be the account manager if it's the right copywriter. We're also going to need a website manager at some point. So we need to think about all those costs. And now let's look at the revenue. What are we going to charge for this? we'll offer a good, better, best solution. So maybe a quarterly for the small ones that don't have a lot of budget. So for $650 a year, we're going to meet with you once during the year. We're going to plan a quarterly email and message calendar, and we're going to give you a report once a quarter. That's $650 a year. If we do this monthly, this is, when you design a good, better, best plan, you want to do the one in the middle. The good is what most people are going to go with. And that's the one we want to push. So we really want them to do a monthly meeting, a monthly newsletter, where it starts with every quarter we meet with them to plan the calendar of messaging. We're going to provide a monthly email and a monthly report. That's $250 a month. Or if it's a nonprofit that really wants to generate some buzz, we'll do it weekly with a monthly meeting to plan out with a weekly message calendar, a weekly email to their constituency, and a report. That's going to be $825 a month, or whatever you want to call it. But the point here is, when you're done with this, you've got a service that's ready to go. And your value propositions, this is your sales page. This is why you want to do it. This is the reason the nonprofit should hire you. You're speaking to their pains and gains. So when you get this finished, you are ready to sell the service. Does that make sense? So download those worksheets at nathaningram.com/GoWP, and they'll be a big help for you, hopefully, as you start to put together recurring revenue for your business. All right. So how do you price services for recurring revenue? And this is tough. Pricing is always tough. So when we're talking about a website care plan, the website price, what you're charging for building a website, affects your care plan price. So you can't charge $100 a month for a care plan if you're building $1,200 website. You just can't do it. You're in the wrong tier of customer. So this is a grid that is suggested starting points. This is not true, not for every, this is just a guesstimate, right? It's a starting point, a suggestion. So if you're selling websites under $2,000, first of all, you probably need to raise your rates, but you can probably sell a care plan around $50 a month. If you're in the $2,000 to $3,500 range, maybe around $70 a month. If you're $3,500 or up, you ought to be able to sell those for around $100 a month. So those are just some basic starting points. If you look at price points around in your market, you might get some additional insight, but that's about right for most places. So just as a jumping off place, there you go. Now, how do we sell these things, right? And that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's great to have, a care plan, but how do I sell it to my clients? So here's what I've learned over the years. There is a key to selling care plans to website clients, and that key is education. Your clients need to understand the importance of quality hosting, ongoing backups, consistent updates, reliable security. They have to understand that because they're not in our world. They don't understand why it's important. So we have to educate them. So this is the way I do it. I talk about WordPress when I'm meeting with a client. WordPress is great. It's your website. You own it. It's easy to use. It is infinitely expandable. You can do just about anything you want to do. However, there's some reasons where WordPress is not so great. WordPress is a third of the internet now, so it's a target for hackers. It needs to be backed up and updated and kept secure. Those things need to happen. And, as you're fiddling around the back end of the site, things can go wrong. So you need to have someone helping you with that sort of support. So you have to educate the client on those challenges. And I've learned that education, I used to do it when I was about ready to launch the site. And, oh, by the way, we need to add a care plan on. And what I learned was the client gets really angry when they paid $4,000 for a website and now, oh, by the way, it's going to cost me $100 a month more. And they feel like you pulled the wool over their eyes. So what I learned is the education piece needs to happen when you meet with them the first time at the initial consultation. When you're talking about price with the client, and by the way, that first consultation should always include a price point. Price point is not only the build cost of the website, but also the ongoing cost to manage it. So that education needs to start in the initial consultation. Otherwise, your client's going to feel manipulated. So the way I do this is I give the client options. Now, you can choose not to keep the site up to date and backed up and secure. You can do nothing. That is an option. It's a terrible option, but it's an option. Eventually, you're going to get hacked or your website's going to break. Or you can choose to do it yourself. Keep the site backed up and secure and up to date. You can do it yourself, and we'll teach you how to do it. matter of fact. And by the way, if they want to do it this way, we're going to include additional training cost in the proposal for training the client how to keep WordPress managed. But you can do it yourself. If you can do it, if you're technical, or if you have a staff member who's technical, you can do that. Or we do it for you. We offer a suite of ongoing services to keep your website safe and working properly. You can task an employee with it and hope it gets done correctly, or for $100 a month, you can hire us and we'll just take care of it and you don't have to worry about it. That's the sales pitch, and it works. But it's based on education. Once you explain the importance of it, I mean, do I really need to explain the importance of keeping WordPress secure to anybody on this webinar? Probably not. It's an easy sell once you explain those things to the client. Let the client understand how important it is, and they realize that you have a service that meets exactly the need that they have. They just didn't know they had the need. Now, real quick, if you are doing all of this for free now, how do you transition a client from I'm doing all this work for free to keep the site maintained and up to date? Maybe you're charging a small hosting fee, but doing all the backups and WordPress updates, and you're not making any money that way. Or maybe you're not getting any money at all, and the client's just paying their own hosting, and you're doing the updates because you feel obligated. What do you do? Well, here's a plan, 4 steps. First of all, just like we talked about a minute ago, you've got to educate your clients on the importance of maintenance. Why is it important that WordPress stays backed up and up to date and so forth? And explain that you can't continue to do this for free. I've been doing all of this for you all this time and haven't charged you anything, and that's just not sustainable for me in my business model. I cannot continue to offer this service for free. So give them options, just like you would with any other client at the beginning. You can do nothing, you can do it yourself, or we offer a service, and here's the cost. But most importantly, you've got to set a firm date when your free update services will stop. So this is a conversation that is best had in person or on the phone. Not great to just send it over email. You need to have a conversation with them, but you got to give them a stop date. Otherwise, it'll be next year and they still haven't made a decision yet. So you got to put some urgency on it. Otherwise, they're not ever going to make the transition. Just a little bit of thought on, I've done this with some people in the past, of making that transition from free to paid. And again, I know there's a lot of stuff on the screen. You can download all these slides with all this stuff here at nathaningram.com/GoWP. Now, we're just about at the end here, but I want to give you a little bit of vision and hope about the difference that recurring income can make, because this one thing is what has transformed my business over the years. The ultimate goal of recurring income is to do this. When you look at your business finances, this ought to be your goal. First of all, getting a little stingy on where you spend money yourself, reducing recurring expenses, and at the same time expanding recurring revenue. When you see those things start to separate, the difference between those points of expenses and income is profit. Profit is good. So as you're reducing expenses, building recurring revenue, something beautiful starts to happen. You can start to pay your salary with the recurring income that you make from your business. Now, let me talk about how important this is. There are probably a number of people on this webinar right now who are struggling to sell one more website by the end of the month so you can pay your bills. A lot of people are in that position. A lot of WordPress business owners are in that position. And it's stressful. It's hard, especially if you are not a natural salesperson, which most of us doing WordPress business are not natural salespeople. We struggle with it. And so we're caught in this difficult place. But as you start to reduce recurring expenses so it doesn't cost you as much to live, and by the way, expenses on the personal side and the business side, getting out of personal debt is huge to this process. But getting those expenses down, recurring income up, that lets you start to build in recurring revenue to cover that profit, begins to pay your salary. Doesn't happen immediately. It's not overnight. But over the course of here, I was selling a website, $100 here, $100 here, $100 here. Do that one website a month for a year. You've got $1,200. Now you're on year 2 and you're selling one website a month. By the end of that year, you got $2,400. It's coming in just automatically. Selling 2-3 websites a month sometimes. Maybe it's building up. What does your actual salary need to be? And how many care plans would it take for you to pay that salary? About reducing expenses so it costs you less to live, expanding recurring revenue. When you start to pay your salary with recurring revenue, this wonderful thing happens. You get peace. You can breathe. The pressure is off, right? You know, for years now, I have paid my salary from the recurring revenue that comes in from my business. If I don't sell a website for the next 3 months, it's fine. It doesn't matter. If I have a client that's delaying 4 or 5 months on content and we're not getting paid, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I've got recurring revenue that's paying my salary. If I'm looking at a client and that client is misbehaving and being a terrible client, I'm not afraid to fire the client because my salary is paid by recurring revenue. For many of us, we keep bad clients far too long because we have to have their money to survive. And I get that. I've lived it. I know it. That's why recurring revenue is so important. It stabilizes your finances so you're not forced to either take a bad client to begin with or keep a bad client because you're obligated financially. When you get to this point, it is remarkable. How would this change your business if you had this in place for you? How much less money stress would you have? How many fewer bad clients would you have because you didn't have to take them? How much more would you be able to focus on the kind of work that you want to do? You know, I've got a friend right now who lives in the Ukraine, and Chris has a WordPress business. Now, Chris and his wife have like 10 kids, okay? Chris is from Oklahoma. They have 10 kids. They're adopted. All 10 kids are adopted. All 10 kids have special needs. They adopted 10 kids with special needs. And they moved to Ukraine because in Ukraine, families with special needs are shunned by society. And Chris and his wife realized they could be a real help to people who are in their very same situation. Now, how in the world do you support a family with 10 kids, all of whom are special needs, overseas when you can't really work in that country? Now, they have a nonprofit organization, but trying to raise funds, it's not easy. So what did Chris do? He's got a WordPress business, and he's got recurring revenue built up. And it's allowed him and his family to do what they're called to do. His business fuels the life he wants to live. I had another client she wanted to take time off to have a baby. And she worked hard to build her business so that she could take 6 months off of her business to have a baby and stay home that first 6 months. She did it. Not easy, but she did it. Recurring revenue made it possible. She didn't have to take on one new project during that time, and she hired some people to come in to run the day-to-day of the business and do the WordPress updates and all that stuff, keep the sites watched over, and she just coasted for 6 months to have her baby, to stay home, to enjoy that time that she wanted. It was her priority, and her business fueled her priority because the recurring revenue made it possible. If you built recurring revenue in your business, how would it change your business, and how would it change your life? That's why I say that recurring revenue, recurring income, is the foundation of a successful freelance business. Virtually impossible to survive without it. Hope this has been helpful to you. We do want to give you a special offer as we're wrapping up today. This talk is one part of the Advanced Profits course. All of my courses are on sale right now through the end of the week. Or actually, there's a coupon code that's good through the end of the week, 30% off of all my courses through Friday, the end of the day, Friday, July 19th. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, the courses are full of information. The Advanced Profits course teaches you how to get your money under control and know the money part. The Process course has my contract and proposal templates and how to build a process to sustain your business. Productivity is all about building good habits, how to grow your business even while you're busy with client work. All those are offered 30% off with the coupon code GoWP at nathaningram.com. Again, that link, nathaningram.com/GoWP for the slides and other resources. And you can always find me at training.ithemes.com. We do live webinars all the time. And I'm always there talking about something related to WordPress. All those webinars are free. Emily, thanks for letting me be with you guys today. I think we have about 5 more minutes, and I'll hang around for any other questions that pop in.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nathan. I thought that was really great stuff. I especially like the worksheets you shared and showing how to really unpack these ideas that we have sometimes, like if only we could implement these, but those worksheets really help you unpack how to do it. So I thought that was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for being here. If anyone has any questions, now's the time. And also, Nathan talked a lot about these WordPress care plans and that sort of thing. So if you guys have any questions about those and how GoWP can help you out with that, I'm here for you and happy to answer questions on that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Alex. It was great to be with you.
We will be sending out the recording of this webinar over the next couple of days, so you can watch your email for that as well. And you can find those worksheets at the page that Nathan created there, nathaningram.com/GoWP.
All right, looks like we are quiet on the question front. If you do have questions, you can always tweet at me at Nathan Ingram. Happy to chat with you there. Or you can reach out to me on my website, nathaningram.com. Hit the contact page and just fill out the form there, and I will get right back in contact with you. Happy to answer questions and be helpful to you if I can.
Great. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And we will be sending that recording out shortly. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.